Welcome to the show. I'm James Swanwick. Today we've got a friend of mine by the name of Dan Goh, who is a high performance coach for entrepreneurs. And we're going to be talking about how to create a confident and energetic body that supports an energetic life. Now, we'll be touching on alcohol, of course, but this particular episode and conversation isn't really focused purely on alcohol. It's more focused on how can you create the energy, the sleep, the body that I always say nature intended you to have. Doesn't necessarily mean you got to have a six-pack or be rocking a perfect bikini body down at the beach. But like, what's the body that I feel nature intended you to have, where you feel good, you look good, you feel confident? We're going to be talking about that today. So with that, Dan, great to have you with us, my friend.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. And I have a lot of respect. I mean, we've known each other for throughout the years. Number one, I'm just a huge fan of your blue light blocking glasses, the Swannies. I use them every single night. It has been a mainstay pretty much, and every time I put it on, I always think of you, which is always great too.
You're wearing a memory of me every time. Every time you wear those glasses.
I do. And also like I've been through my own kind of like journey with getting my body in shape, but also with alcohol as well. Love to talk about those things. And again, just thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for being here. So tell us a little bit about you. How old are you? Where do you live? Tell us about your family life, and maybe just touch on your journey from not being as healthy to you being particularly healthy and vibrant today.
Yeah, so I'm 43 years old at the time of this recording, and I live in beautiful Kelowna, British Columbia. I have a wife, I have two daughters, and yeah, it's just my number one priority is my family, and hopefully I live life in a way which reflects that. Now, one of the things that I know for a fact is when you are in better health, when you are in good health, then it becomes an area where you have a million wishes. You can ask for anything in life. But when you don't have good health, the only thing that you want is good health. That's the only thing that matters. So for me, it started off with I was a high school dropout. I didn't really have any purpose. I didn't really have any direction in life. And I was completely out of shape. I've actually just remember ever since I was a kid just being embarrassed about my body. It came to a point where I would wear t-shirts to the pool. I remember going to like an eighth grade, graduation birthday party, and everyone's jumping in the pool with their shirts off. Well, not the girls, but the guys. And then I was there like with a white shirt, just like jumping in because I couldn't even stand the look of my own body. And I thought that would be something that I'd like live with for the rest of my life. But there came a point in time where these two things came into a head. So after about maybe like a couple of years of just binge drinking, smoking cigarettes, and not really caring about my body, my friend asked me to go and play basketball at the local gym. And I hadn't played basketball for a very long time. It was a sport that I just loved playing. And I remember the very first time just running up and down that court, my lungs felt like they were going to explode. But there was this one particular moment. I was just like running down and trying to catch this guy in a fast break. And then I remember there was like this little bit of like a jiggle in my chest area. And being the ignorant guy that I am, I'm like, oh shit, is this like cancer? Do I have like a lump in my breast or something like that? Like, what is this? And then I remember I went home, I took off my shirt, and I started to feel my chest, and I was like, oh crap, I have man boobs.
Mm-hmm.
And once I realized that, I was like, I got to do something now, or else I might turn into a guy that ultimately resembles maybe like a prepubescent girl or something like that. It was very embarrassing. So I ended up starting to play basketball and, kind of like quitting smoking. That was like my first steps. And then afterwards, I was like, well, there's got to be something else. And then I remember my dad, he actually was going to the gym way before I was. And he just kept on going to the gym. He actually was about like maybe about 30 to 40 pounds heavier. He really slimmed himself down. He went to the gym. He did this for like 2 years. And I got to see his transformation. And he ended up, because he was such a good member at the gym, they gave him a month-long pass. And they're like, here, give this to like anyone that you want. He
Mm.
ended up giving it to my older brother. He didn't use it. And then he gave it to me, or my older brother gave it to me. And then my whole thing was like, hey, at worst, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm just going to see really hot women, and that's just going to be it.
Mm.
And at best, I'm going to do that. And I'm also going to get my body in shape. But it's a win-win scenario. And also, I wasn't even doing anything with my life at that time. So I ended up going to the gym, lifting horribly. I did it like straight, maybe like 5 days a week for like 2 weeks, because it was like just something to do. And then I ended up going to, I remember this like very distinctly. I was in the change room, I was changing my pants, and then I ended up putting my belt on. And then my belt went in like one notch, and I hadn't even changed like the way I was dieting at all. And I was like, this can't be right. But the result in and of itself was enough to kind of just drive me to seek more and to seek what else like I can do with my body. And then, just long story short, I ended up learning everything I could about body transformation, about fat loss, about gaining muscle. And I found that it was something that I was just like completely obsessed about, because it was one of my weakest areas of my life. And then once I was like obsessed about it, I became it became almost like a passion for me. So I turned into a trainer. I ended up becoming a trainer, one of the top trainers at the gym in about 2 years. And then I started my own business, and then it led me to where I am right now, which is talking to like millions of people on social media, owning my own business, and doing it in a very fulfilling way where I'm like actually transforming the lives of people in my business.
Yeah, thank you. You are doing that, and I would just encourage our listener to go and check out Dan at Fit Founder on Instagram and Twitter, formerly, or X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah.
And Dan does some really amazing educational posts all over social media where you can learn to lose some unwanted body fat, to sleep better, to be more mobile, how to get some maybe 10,000 steps in a day. He does amazing work, so go and check him out at Fit Founder. It's interesting you were talking about that moment where you felt like you had man boobs, and I was thinking, when was the time? What was the moment where I really made a big change in my health? And it was, I'm going to show you the photo, Dan. I'm just pulling it up here in the background, but there's a photo of me and the Hollywood actress Jennifer Aniston that really changed my life forever. Let me show you the photo. Can you see it there, Dan?
Yeah, I do.
Can you describe for our listener how I look in that photo?
Well, a lot more hair, that's for sure. We can
Yeah,
see
that's
the
true.
beginnings of a double chin over there,
Double
and
chin.
just a little bit more husky. Yeah.
That's big. I think
Jennifer's looking great though. Jennifer
Jennifer
Aniston.
Aniston's
Oh
looking
my,
great, but
she
you're
looks
being very
fantastic.
polite to me. You're being very polite, saying I'm looking a bit husky. In other words, folks, I was about 38, 40 pounds heavier than what I am now. Okay. And that was the photo. And when that photo was taken, I actually sucked my gut in. And
Mm,
because I could feel like fat rolls going over the top of my jeans that I was wearing. And that photo was taken at the Sundance Film Festival in Park City, Utah. And I remember looking at that photo and going, man, I look awful. I look weathered. I'm overweight. I got the double chin, and I remember sucking my gut in. And that for me was the moment that I really started to pay attention to health. It wasn't the moment that I stopped drinking alcohol, though. It took another year or so before I was in Austin, Texas, and I had a couple Bombay Sapphire gin and tonics and woke up, went to an IHOP, an International House of Pancakes, and I sat there and I said, man, just take a 30-day break from alcohol and see what happens. And
mm.
it's turned into 13 and a half years. And like you, now I've got to create a business that helps people have a better relationship with alcohol, in many cases stop forever. And life just feels so much better. So your catalyst and my catalyst, it's amazing what that can lead to down the road, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, dude, you just like sparked this memory in me, which is a sense of like everywhere I went, I would suck in my stomach, right? Because it would always like bulge out of the shirt. And then every picture that I took, every time that I was in the change room, changing in front of other people, even just like talking to girls, I would always suck in my stomach. And then it's just that level of like embarrassment where you're just like completely just ashamed of your body, where it leads to a great amount of dissatisfaction, and it does actually lead to a little bit of change as well. But yeah, man, it's crazy how kind of like the one little instant of where like the straw that broke the camel's back is like you probably were feeling that way so for so long before that picture, and then once you saw that picture, you're like, I got to do something about this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Was there also a moment, whether it was weeks, months, or years later, besides when the belt was in one notch, illustrating that you'd lost some weight?
Yeah.
Was there a moment where you truly felt confident in maybe having your photo taken being shirtless, and that symbolized you
Mm.
feeling finally confident with your body or with your health?
That took a long time. I'm not even gonna lie about that. That took a significant amount of time to get there because that is basically just unlearning uh, a few, actually 2 decades of just being insecure about my body. There was an actual time, and of course this happened over the course of years, and I just worked up to it. For me, it wasn't like a 12-week challenge. It wasn't a 6-week thing or whatever it was. It was actually the process of just like years of working on my body and years of working on, actually when I started to work on my body, my mindset started to change as well. Like the way my brain started to work as well, it started to improve. So it was over the course of like say like 5 years of actually working on my body. And I remember I got myself to what would be called like photo shoot ready shape, where I'm like 9% body fat and just looking shredded to the gills. And then it was at that point where I did that. And even though I kind of like, gained a little bit of weight back after that, which you do because it's so extreme, that was like the time where I started to be like, hey, guess what? Like I've actually put in the work and I'm actually a fit dude now, or actually I feel like I'm a fit dude. So, but it did take years. And that's something that I want to get through to a lot of people, is the fact that, this stuff is not some short-term thing that you do and you're automatically, okay, here I am. I'm already like transformed. It is a mental and a physical transformation that happens over the course of years. And I really just hope that people give themselves that time horizon when it comes to getting their bodies in shape.
One of the big hacks for me to remain consistent in going to the gym or exercising, and just for context, I'm in the gym probably 5 times a week, and then one day a week I go for a run, and then one day I just do nothing, and I walk on that day off. And that has worked really well for me over the years. And the hack is that I really look forward to doing it. And more than that, I really look forward to the feeling about 30 minutes to an hour after I've finished in the gym
Yeah.
or gone for a run. And that anticipation, much like you might be watching a thriller or like a movie and you're trying to anticipate the ending, what's going to happen. For me, I get this thrill for the anticipation of the feeling of just like mental accomplishment, physical accomplishment, the feeling of having a shower, putting on clean clothes, and getting ready to eat a meal. I'm like, that starts the night before. I know I'm going to be in the gym. It starts the night before with my preparation of getting my gym clothes ready, my water bottle ready. So when I wake up in the morning, I go into the gym, I do my exercise, and then I'm looking forward to the shower. I'm looking forward to the clean clothes. I'm looking forward to the taste of the food I'm about to put in my mouth post workout. That has been the biggest hack for me in keeping that consistency. How do you feel about that?
Uh, this reminds me of like the marshmallow test a lot, where it's like, if you don't eat this marshmallow, you're gonna get like 2 marshmallows later on. And to me, fitness and just working out in general is like the ultimate life marshmallow test, where doing the event of working out, guess what? Like it's painful. It's not like the thing that where you're like at some point in time, maybe you're gonna be like, oh yeah, this feels like so good. I'm getting the pump. But when you're first starting, you're like, this sucks. Like this is painful to do. And why am I putting myself through such pain in order to achieve something that I won't even see for the next like month to like years? But what people don't realize is that the more that you actually do it, the more you get the benefits after you do it. You don't necessarily get the benefit while you're doing it, but you get the benefit afterwards. And the benefit that comes along with it is like mental clarity, focus, energy. it's the subtle confidence of actually doing something you know that you didn't even feel like doing in the first place. Like, I'm going to say this for the both of us, like, not for you and I, we don't really like always like be like, okay, I can't wait to go to the gym. This is going to be great. Like, I can't wait for this workout. Sometimes when I'm doing like a workout, or I know I'm going to do like, say, like a leg workout, I'm like, fuck, like I'm dreading it a little bit.
Me
But it
too
is
with legs.
it is. And it's the aspect of actually forcing yourself to do something that you don't want to do and still doing it. And then to me, like, that is the talent. That is where the skill comes from. And guess what? Like, we both run businesses as well. It's like, is every single aspect of our business something that we look forward to doing? Absolutely not. But we do it because we know that we're going to get a benefit later on from it. So I look at going to the gym as the ultimate marshmallow test, where it's like you're not going to get the instant gratification of actually doing it, but you get the delayed gratification of all the other things that we just talked about after you get the workout done, but not before, only after. And then when you do that over the course of time, what happens as a result is you gain more confidence in yourself. You actually prove to yourself, you have this thing called the undeniable stack of proof that you are able to do things that are beneficial for you regardless of how you feel. And then to me, that goes a long way. That's why I say transform your body to transform your life, because to me, that relates to every single area of your life. If you can do that for the gym, then that means you can do that for business. That means you could do that for relationships. That means you could do that for alcohol. It is the literal litmus test of whether or not you're able to do things that you don't want to do, especially when you don't feel like doing them.
Mm. One little hack, additional hack that I've created is I have a personal trainer. Before the listener thinks, oh, well, geez, wouldn't it be nice to afford a personal trainer? Maybe not in that situation where you can afford it. My personal trainer is actually in Medellin, Colombia. And what he charges in Colombian pesos works out to be about 17 American dollars per personal training session. So while I've been in London, England, while we're recording this for the summer, at 12 p.m. UK time, it's 6 a.m. Medellin time for him. He's in the gym already at 6 a.m. And so we do a video call. I put my Apple iPods on, which I should say is the only time I wear that. Usually I'm wearing the ones with the cords, and we'll get into that in just a second. But Monday through Friday. So now I have a personal trainer, and I just take my phone and I lean it up against my water bottle. And so the video is on me. He tells me what to do. I do it because I know I have to start at 12. There's no way I'm getting out of that workout, because I know he's traveling from his home to the gym at 6 a.m. to be there for me. Plus, I pay him for it, right? So that's been a great form of accountability for me. And it only costs me, less than $100 a week to have a personal trainer. So that's been a great form of, let's call it forced accountability. But I would submit, even if you don't, have a personal trainer, there are so many group exercise classes that one can do, right, Dan?
I would say that what you are doing is what works for you.
Yes.
And that is the thing. Like, everyone thinks that there is this like one size fits all solution to getting in shape, to working out, to forcing yourself to even like work out when you don't feel like it. Well, the thing is that like some people really work well with group training. I actually had a boot camp CrossFit style gym for like 11 years, and I attracted people who loved to train in groups. Now, personally, would I want to train in a group? Absolutely freaking not. Like, for me, like the gym is like a solitary thing. Like, it's like being by myself. I love like just being in my thoughts and just kind of like creating this like cloud over myself, this like this shroud of just like privacy where I don't want to talk to anyone. I got my headphones on. And for someone like even like yourself, it's like having a personal trainer and having someone there to like push you for the next rep. That also works as well. One thing I will always say is like, go with like whatever you feel is like going to create the least amount of friction to you actually getting the workout done. And that's what you're doing. Like, basically it's doing what you like. And also one thing I'll say is like, when I started to get myself in shape, I didn't start by going to the weight room, or didn't start by working out. I started by playing basketball, which I loved to do in the first place. If I loved surfing, then I would have went surfing. If I loved like playing like badminton, I would have done that too. but start with something that you actually like doing so it doesn't really feel like exercise. And then I always find that when you do something like that, it allows you to ramp up to things like weight training. It allows you to ramp up to things and it like even dieting and even fixing your sleep, because all of these things create positive momentum in your life.
Mm. In a minute, I'll ask you to share some maybe practical tips for overall health and nutrition. We might cover sleep, we might cover nutrition and exercise and sunlight and walking, a few of those kind of things. But I'm curious, did you find a correlation between physical fitness and mental health?
Yes, a direct correlation. So before getting myself into shape and even doing the things to get myself into shape, I can count it out. Like, I was a high school dropout. I had a job that I hated. I wasn't really doing anything with my life. I was binge drinking multiple times a week. I was smoking cigarettes. And then when I wouldn't be doing anything, I'd be on my couch, either watching movies or even playing video games. Like, my life was basically this directionless pit of going nowhere. And even my parents were just like, what is going to happen with this kid? I don't even know what is going to happen with him. When I started to find the gym, it led into what I call the virtuous cycle. So when I started to get my body in shape, when I started to move, my brain started to work better. I mean, everything that we know about exercise and also the brain is the fact that when you exercise, it creates BDNF, which creates almost like new brain cells. It's like the fertilizer for the brain. It helps you have more energy. It helps increase focus and clarity. It actually helps you manage the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for making decisions. And it also helps you manage your emotions as well. I never went into exercise thinking about these things in the first place. I just did it because I was like, okay, well, it's just something to do. But what I realized later on was I was actually changing my brain chemistry as a result of exercising 5 to 6 to even 7 days a week. The more, well, I won't say the more that you exercise, but the more that we move our bodies, the more that we kind of like live in the what we would call like the prehistoric ancestral way that we used to live, which is like walking 16,000 to 17,000 steps, just moving your body on a regular basis. What happens as a result is you are changing your brain by doing that. So I didn't really get into it for the brain, benefits or the mental health benefits, but now I seek the gym to improve my mental health. So when I'm feeling stressed, I go to the gym. If I'm feeling angry or even sad, I go to the gym, and I don't do it to change my emotions. I do it to help myself better manage my emotions. And if there's anything that we know about humans and human nature, is the fact that we are emotional creatures. We are the most emotional creatures out of all the animals on the planet. And if you cannot control your emotions, that actually leaves you privy to getting controlled. It leaves you privy to being able to kind of like be reactive to things that you wouldn't necessarily be reactive to. So I look at the gym and I look at working out and I even look at like my diet and sleep as these pillars, not just for like my physical health, but I look at it as a way to manage my mental health.
You mentioned 16, 17,000 steps a day. As what's your research shown on what's the optimal number of steps we might aim for?
Yes. If we're looking for longevity, then what they say is that about 6,000 steps leads to about 15% increase. 8,000 steps a day leads to a further 15 or actually 10 to 15% increase. The whole like 10K steps thing is largely a myth. But I do like the idea of 10K steps from an aspect of getting lean and just having it as like a basic habit in your life. But if we're looking kind of like from a longevity perspective and also from a brain boosting perspective, we're looking at anywhere between 6,000 to 8,000 steps. Now, our ancestors got about 16 to 17,000 steps as a result of like hunting, not having cars, not having transportation. Does this mean that we have to do that? I would say no. But one thing I will say, and this is just a correlation, is the fact that some of the most creative people that I know in the world, like Steve Jobs, Albert Einstein, Carl Jung, everyone, all of these guys had a habit of just walking to improve creativity, to improve mental clarity. So one of the things that actually I have a friend named Dan Coe, he walks about like 20,000 steps. I have another friend who's in the social media space. His name's Justin Walsh. He walks about like 20,000 steps a day. I do think that there is something to getting the amount of steps that you need from a prehistoric angle as well. There's something that happens to the brain. There's something that happens to creativity. I don't have the studies to really prove it, but I'm going to say this is like, it is not necessarily bad for you to get more than 10K steps if you can. I think of it as like a net positive, and plus it's not going to be high impact enough where it's going to affect your body in negative ways.
And that's in addition to going to a gym in many, like doing
Yeah,
some
I would say it's like
workout or
gym
lifting.
like 2 to 3 days per week, lifting weights. You're working on conditioning would be about maybe like 2 days per week, maybe like a 15-minute session of HIIT training, or maybe like 2 sessions of like zone 2 cardio, something of that nature. That is like most optimal, but do you really have to do that? I'm gonna say probably not. Like, one of the things I've actually realized about people who have lived to like 90 or above, they don't really do like zone 2 cardio. They don't do HIIT, but what they do is they do a lot of walking. I remember it's like that is like the correlation. It's like they walk 2 to 3 miles a day outside in nature, and well, that's like the main habit that they have that actually contributes to moving for longevity. So like, I'm just going to say it all depends. I mean, that's what the research is pointing to, but I really don't think you necessarily have to do that. I think walking is kind of like one of the only things that you have to do.
I remember years ago, I had a client and he was 300 pounds plus, big boy, used to drink 2-liter bottles. So 1-liter bottles of Coca-Cola every day.
Yeah.
And when I dug into his habits, I realized that he was, when he was walking to his car to drive home from work, there was a Target, like a Target store between his work and his car. And so at the end of the day, he had this ritual of walking into the Target and buying one of these 1-liter bottles of Coca-Cola and then drinking it as he went home and then when he got home. So one of the things I had him do to try to help him lose the weight was, instead of driving his car to work, was to take the bus. And because he took the bus, the route from his work to the bus was different. Well, sorry, cut out walking past Target. So he didn't see Target. He didn't have that visual cue of walking into it, and therefore he didn't do it, or at least it was easier for him not to do it. Anyway, when he lost about 100 pounds overall, lost about 40 pounds when I was working with him. But that's an example of just switching your habit ever so slightly, and that increased his steps, and it got rid of the sugar that he was drinking from the Coke. So habits, any habit tips you might have, Dan, on that?
I think you locked in on one of the most important ones, which is setting up your environment to win. I'll use an example. So I have these lights that I use for filming, and you know, like, these lights are kind of complicated. Putting them together is a little bit of a task. But one of the things that was happening was that these lights were basically staying in the box and they weren't being used whatsoever. So one thing I did was, like, I literally like took out the lights in the box. I laid them out in a place which would be like totally inconvenient to actually lay them out in, because I had to step around them. And eventually, over the course of time, what happened as a result was I actually put together the lights, and now they're a mainstay in like my office. What am I getting with this? The thing is that I used my environment as a way to force the action that I'm trying to take. In your case with your client, what happened as a result is you got rid of the cue of Target, because every single time he looks at a Target, he's like, all right, you know, 2 1-liter bottles of Coke. Let's get after it, right? You got rid of that, and you also replaced it. This is like the most important part. You replaced it with something that would take the aspect or the energy away from the walking into Target, which is like taking the bus and walking to work. So one of the main things about like any habit is like making sure that you have the environment to support that habit. I would also throw in there like accountability. I mean, like, he had you as a coach. You would hold him accountable. If you didn't go to like the Target, then you'd be like, all right, what happened? Like, why did you walk into the Target? Why did you get these Cokes? And then you would like hold his ass to the fire based on like the things that you guys agreed upon. And having a high level of accountability, plus setting up your environment to make it frictionless for you to actually do these habits in the first place, those two to me are like the main keys to getting any habit set in terms of your life. there is one missing aspect to that, which I will throw in there, which is the idea of reflection and introspection. So anytime that we're trying to get rid of a habit or even add a habit on, we need to have some form of self-awareness. And this is the biggest part that I see people miss whenever they're trying to change any part of their life. So I use myself as an example. So back in September 11th, 2022, I went under this period called monk mode, and I just basically got rid of all distractions. I was going to work on my business and just like really just like pour all of my energy into only two things: my business, my family. That's it. One of the things that I did was I got rid of drinking alcohol. This has been something that I had been doing for, I would say, probably like 20 years straight, most likely. And then when I got rid of alcohol, because I was doing it like every single week, but when I got rid of it, I was just journaling the effect it was having on my life. And then the reason I did this, and this is also something I did to also like quit porn, because that was like a part of my life in my 30s. The reason I do this and the reason I did this is because with self-reflection and awareness comes change. But you can't just keep the change up here, because something that I know about like just giving up alcohol or even body transformation is the fact that it's a slow creep. It's slow creep one way or another. So, you know, for one of your clients or even one of my clients, I always ask them is like, did you gain like these 30 pounds overnight, or did it happen over the course of like months or years? And obviously it happened over the course of months or years. And then I always tell them it's like, it's a slow creep either way. You're going to have a slow creep getting out of shape, and you're going to have slow creep getting into shape. The thing about the slow creep that not a lot of people realize is that you forget about the things that are happening. Like, I'll use another client as an example. We helped him drop like 35 pounds off of his body. But one thing that we asked him is like, okay, cool. How do you feel? Is there anything that happened this week that doesn't usually happen? And he would have to recount and really think about, oh yeah, I didn't have to take a nap this week. I didn't feel like taking a nap. Oh, you know, when I was doing the presentation in front of like all my cohorts, I felt more confident than I've ever felt before. Oh, when I met this new person, I was more engaging than I used to be. And the thing is, like, he had to think about these things. They didn't happen and they didn't like come up. It just happens over the course of time. So you have to get introspective about these habits that you are changing. You have to be aware, you have to journal them out, and you have to bring some form of reflection to what you're doing, because that is going to lock in all of the benefits that you are seeing as a result of changing whatever part of your life that you want to change.
Beautiful. Dan, let me ask you for a one-word answer to a couple of questions, and then I'll ask you to elaborate on it. So, keto or paleo or vegetarianism or veganism or Atkins diet?
What's the context? For health, longevity, for fat loss? What's the context for those?
Yeah, that's a great question. Back to my question.
Yeah.
And it's also answering the question in a very clever way.
Yeah.
I think you've already answered the question actually by asking that question back. My question was really, which is preferable? You know, which is.
I wish I could give you a one-size-fits-all answer, but and I know I'm just totally crushing, you know, this sequence of just like one-word answers, but I'll give you a two-part answer.
Yeah, I gave you almost an impossible question to answer.
Yeah, my two-word answer is actually, it's going to be a two-word answer. It depends. And I wish I could elaborate on this. So if I may, like, okay, so yes. Keto diet and like paleo and all this kind of stuff, if you're trying to like lose weight, the only thing that you need to focus on is doing a certain diet that fits the way in which you like to eat. So if you don't see yourself eating carbs for the rest of your life, then cool, you could do keto, you know, like you can count calories, you can do anything, but really what you need is just like a caloric deficit. Now, that being said, it's like keto actually has benefits past, say, trying to cut calories. I mean, it is actually used therapeutically for some medical conditions that are out there. So in general, it's like, let's just say like paleo, again, it's just like eating ancestrally a little bit. I would say, if anything, if my one word answer would be like, probably like more leaning towards paleo than anything else. but again, like all of these things and all these diets, it has the context of like it just depends. And that's the thing. It's like with our clients, we don't do a one size fits all. We're like, okay, well, this is what's happening in your life. This is what we gotta do, and then we're gonna use this particular type of solution for it.
And for the listener, you can check out more about Dan at dango.co, and you can check him out at Fit Founder on social media. Yeah, it was a bit of an unfair question, but I wanted to see how you answered it. You answered it beautifully, Dan. Thank you. Coffee or no coffee?
Coffee. Absolutely. And again, it depends. So coffee for people who no, coffee for like most people who can take coffee. There's a small percentage of people who just get super anxious and can't really deal with like the effects of caffeine. One coffee a day, and the benefits are just the benefits are there. I mean, more energy, more focus. It feels great, and it also like boosts mood and like all this kind of stuff. And the only danger to like coffee is like if you use it as a crutch for energy, when reality is like you probably should be hydrating, you probably should be fit and and do the things that give you energy.
I've read some studies that suggest you should delay your first coffee of the morning by about 60 to 90 minutes, because if you drink too early, it extends the cortisol in your body, which actually slows the body's fat burning capacity down, I think. Have I got that correct, Dan?
Well, yes, to a degree. It's like so what happens as a result of like this is like when you drink coffee first thing in the morning, before anything else hits your body, it's like the first thing that you do when you wake up. What we don't realize is that your body is actually still getting rid of like this compound called adenosine, and that is like the thing that makes you sleepy. So what coffee is and what caffeine is like it blocks adenosine. And then when you block adenosine, it doesn't mean that you got rid of it. It just means that it's going to come back later. So the reason I would actually delay my coffee probably like 1.5 to 2 hours is because it helps me get just energy, or it helps me maintain a steady pace of energy throughout the afternoon. That is like one of the main reasons. And also, one of the things that should be hitting your body before coffee does is water. I mean, you want to hydrate yourself before anything else, because you've basically gone 7 to 8 to 9 hours without even drinking water, without drinking any liquid, sometimes even longer than that. And one of the things that you want to do is like rehydrate yourself. You might actually find that when you do that, you might not even need coffee for like another like couple hours after that, because you've been hydrated.
How long before, when we want to fall asleep, should we be drinking coffee, drinking liquids, eating food?
So this leads me to something that's called like the 12-3-2-1 method, which is like so 12 hours. Well, actually, it also depends, because like I say 12 hours before you go to sleep, no coffee hits your system. This depends depending on your caffeine sensitivity. There are some people that are just outliers that can actually drink coffee and then go to sleep right afterwards. I'm in awe of these people, but that's not most people. It's just a very small percentage. And then 3 hours before you go to bed, no eating. I would actually say it's 3 to 5 hours before you go to bed, no eating, because that is going to improve the quality of your sleep. It's not just going to improve like your ability to go to sleep, it's going to improve your ability to stay asleep. About 2 hours before you go to bed, you want to stop all liquids going into your body. And this is especially for people who suffer from like nocturia, which is this aspect of you having to wake up in the middle of the night to go pee and then go back and then go through the whole, go through the whole process of trying to get to sleep again. And then 1 hour before you go to bed, you want to get yourself away from all screens. One of the things about that screens do, especially if it's like your phone or if it's like a TV, it emits blue light. And then the thing that we know about blue light is it actually stimulates your circadian rhythms. It turns them on. And one of the things that you want to do is you want to turn off your circadian rhythms before you go to sleep. You want to actually allow your body to rest before you go to sleep. So you want to stay away from screens at least like 1 hour before bed. And that's what it's called, like the 12-3-2-1 method. It's probably like one of the best systems in order to get yourself to sleep.
Yeah. And if you're a long-term listener of the show, you'll know that my brother and I produce blue light blocking glasses called Swannies. And to my knowledge, they're still the only scientifically proven blue blockers on the market. There may be others, I just don't know about them, but the University of Washington did a scientific study on them in 2018, which showed that if you wear the glasses, let's say in the last 45 minutes or an hour before you intend to sleep, that there's every chance that you'll sleep up to 12% better. At least the participants in that study reported sleeping 12% better. And most interestingly, the next day, those same scientific study participants were asked about their productivity or their general overall feeling, and they reported a 13% increase in productivity the day after they wore those blue light blocking glasses, which suggests a great night's sleep is just so important.
I have a story to tell you because this happened with a client of mine. So I had a client who would go to sleep at like 2 a.m. Be like, I just, I'm a night owl. I just can't help going to sleep at 2 a.m. So I bought him Swannies. And I was like, okay, here, wear these at 5 p.m. This is like the wintertime when the sun was like going down a lot faster. I was like, wear these at 5 p.m. Report back to me in a week. Okay. I got him to wear them at 5 p.m. He started to wear them and he said like, and by the time we talked later, the next time he was like, I couldn't like keep my eyes open at like 10 p.m. And then he started to wake up at 6 a.m. as opposed to like 9 or 10 a.m. And what happened as a result was he's like, I don't know what to do with myself. Like I'm waking up so early. What am I supposed to do? And then that is like the power of using blue light blocking glasses, especially like ones that are the ones that have evidence behind them, like yours. To me, it's like I use them every single day, and I think that this should be a staple, especially in like modern times, for everyone to wear blue light blocking glasses, even if you like get away from screens, because there is like some like light emitted from like the lights that you have on the house. It still has an effect. So I mean, I'm a huge fan. Obviously, I talked about it in the beginning of this podcast, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Any other things that you do, maybe around mobility or nutrition or light or sleep, or anything that you do that we haven't referenced so far that could create a big breakthrough for our listener?
To me, it's like the pillars, right? So we talked about working out, hitting the weights. We didn't talk about diet, but obviously, like the more like nutrient dense foods that you put into your body, the better your physical and mental health is going to be. That's like the low key. Like not a lot of people realize like their actual mood and their emotions are tied to the foods that they put into their bodies, and also it ties into kind of like how your gut reacts as well. So that's a huge one. One thing that we didn't touch upon is just time in nature. Especially like sitting inside and under fake lights the entire time. This has an effect on your body. It can actually lead to severe like mental health issues like depression, anxiety, things of that nature. And one of the things that we want to do is like force ourselves to like go outside like we did, way back when we were cavemen and live, not I wouldn't say like the bulk of our hours outside, but at least to get about like 1 to 2 hours of sun exposure, or even like better if you get 1 to 2 hours of morning sun exposure, especially first thing in the day. What happens as a result is you start turning on the circadian rhythms, and then that actually leads to just leading a better quality, optimized life. And one of the things I will say about this is like, I learned about this when I was actually surfing, or when I was in Costa Rica, I was surfing for a bit. I did something called Dawn Patrol, which is like you go surf, you basically go there and you surf at like 6 a.m. when the suns start going up. And one of the things I realized is like physical activity and just like looking at the sun popping itself up, watching the sunrise. By the time like 8 p.m. hits, I'm already like trying to go to bed. It is one of those things that just has this signal to your body to wake up and also like when to go to sleep. So that probably is one of the low key things. And plus, from a stress, anxiety angle, from a mental health angle, you're not going to go wrong by spending more time outside.
I probably have maybe 80% of my Zoom meetings outside as I'm walking. And that's a very intentional thing that I do. Now, you and I, we're talking on a screen right now where we're doing a podcast. I obviously want a much quieter environment. This is one of that 20% where I might be sitting down looking into a screen indoors. But my internal team and people who I have meetings with about business, I am almost always out and about and walking while I am having these meetings. And for me, that helps me get towards what I aim for each day, which is about 15,000 steps. It gets me out in nature. It gets me moving. I can kill a few birds with one stone because I'm doing the work. I'm doing business at the same time. I should say, and I referenced this earlier, the only time I wear the cordless earbuds is when I'm doing that personal trainer session in the gym. I wish I didn't have to do it candidly, but if I had the cord, it gets in the way of a
Yeah.
lot of the gym stuff that I'm doing. But very intentionally when I'm out and about walking, taking meetings, and I've got the headphones on, I have the cords on them as well, because the EMFs have been shown to be quite damaging to us, haven't they, Dan?
Yeah. Yeah. Like there is kind of conflicting evidence around this. Something I will say is like from a common sense angle, it's like, do we really want to like put Bluetooth like right up next to our brains? I mean, just from a common sense angle, it just doesn't make sense. I did, this is not myself, but I watched the Huberman episode where they talked about like the EMFs are just so low level that we shouldn't even worry about it in the first place. For me, this is anecdotal, but I found that when I use, and I still use like, wireless headphones, especially when I work out, because it's cumbersome when you have like a wire in there. But for me, I've actually noticed that it increased my tinnitus inside of my ears. And maybe it's like the actual music that's coming in, but I do feel like just even having them in there, it increases that ringing of the ears. So I do think that there is something to that. Something that I realize about like science in general is the fact that we're still figuring shit out. And some of the things that we may not be privy to, say things like EMF right now, they're just starting to come out of the woodwork in terms of like the evidence pointing to the fact that it's not necessarily that good for our bodies. So yeah, I'm inconclusive about like what these things do. I just know for a fact that I push myself to wear wired headphones. I push myself to limit the amount of like Bluetooth that is beside my brain when I'm wearing headphones as well. So yeah, it's not something that I can really comment on and be like, with expert advice in relation to that.
I'd just like to share one big thing as well, some anecdotal results that I got from what's called forest bathing. And the term emerged in Japan in the 1980s as a physiological and psychological exercise. I think they called it Shinrin Yoko, which is like forest bathing. It's literally just being out in nature, literally in a forest by yourself, no distractions, no phone, no nothing, and just being in nature. And it's a lot more challenging to do forest bathing in the city of London, I have to say. But the idea of it, the concept, speaks to what you were just speaking a little earlier, Dan, which is in the mornings, I like to get up, drink water, walk outside, and go and sit in a park and just watch people. And that's my kind of forest bathing, I guess, because I'm there. There's trees. London has actually, I think 49% of the city of London is parks. I mean, they do a great job of creating that. But even if you don't have access to that, just trying to do a version of forest bathing by just being out in nature, I think is really going to improve your mental health. And also it's going to help with your circadian rhythm. It's going to help with your sleep hygiene and a whole host of other things, right?
Yeah, they've been doing a massive amount of research about this in Japan. I can't directly quote the research, but basically like what people see when they go forest bathing is decreased anxiety, decreased stress, increased clarity, increased creativity. And one of the things that we have to understand is like, it's the dichotomy of two things. So number one is when you're under fake blue light, this has a direct impact on not only your physiology, but also your psychology as well. Getting yourself away from being in a blue light environment long term and getting into a place where you can actually see trees and nature and mountains and like whatever it is. There is something about like the fractals that you see in trees and the things that you see in nature that just bring this relaxation component to what you're doing. Something I will add on top of that as well is like, take off your shoes, take off your socks, and then put your feet on like bare grass. This is like a form of grounding as well. And they've actually done like, just very early studies where they say that doing this and just getting in touch with the earth, either through touching grass or even going in the ocean, it has incredible healing properties. It decreases overall inflammation. And from an anecdotal perspective, anytime that I do that, I just feel like more chill. I just feel like more relaxed. I just feel more me. So getting in touch with nature is like one of these things, like as humans, we should be doing on a regular basis, but modern life doesn't necessarily promote that anymore. And that's why it's more important for us to actually push ourselves to go out and to do these things.
Yeah. Dan, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for spending time with us here today. You've been a wealth
Yeah.
of knowledge, and you're very articulate and very well educated on this, and I really appreciate that about you. And I love spending time with you when we spend time, which is not as much these days. I think it's every couple of years at our annual, well, not an annual, but Dan and I are in a business mastermind together, and every couple of years they have an event in Mexico, and I get to catch up with him, and it's always awesome to spend time with you and get inspired by what you're creating in the world. So I appreciate you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And yeah, like I appreciate the fact that man, I think we've known each other for about a decade, if not longer than that. And it's been cool to see both of us just evolve as people, as human beings, and also in our businesses as well. And yeah, man, and I value our friendship, and I'm so glad that you got me on here so we can connect in this type of way, as opposed to like just seeing each other once a year at the gathering.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you, mate. And for you, the listener, please do check out Dan. You can find him on social media at FitFounder and also dango.co. Thanks, Dan. Thank you to the listener, and we'll catch you on the next one.